everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you all the books that I ended up reading in the month of May and the books that I hope to get to in June. So May was a bit of a kind of okay reading month. Like, I only read 2 books, and it wasn't necessarily that I didn't enjoy these. They were decent middle of the road books, but I think we just had too many things going on with planting, getting all the garden stuff ready, all these things, and going to Canada for an engagement party. So there's just a lot of things kind of going on kind of around this time. So I think I was just a little bit too tired to read, and I do feel like I'm slightly slumpy with my reading. So hopefully the books that I have planned out for June kind of get me to fall back into a good reading routine. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So in May, like I said, I only read 2 books, and I read a duology, and it was the Divine Rivals duology by Rebecca Ross. And this one was one that I just heard everywhere. I heard really great things. It has pretty decent reviews on both Goodreads and Storygraphs, so I was very curious to kind of dive into it. But basically the premise of the story is that we follow 2 people who are competing for the same position at a newspaper, and in this world there were previously gods who have been sleeping for centuries, but then they both wake up, or one of the evil one woke up, and now he has kind of declared war to find Enva, who is the one that was trying to keep him asleep for this whole time. And while this is going on, they are kind of sending letters to each other via kind of a magical magical aspect in this story. And so the first book was Divine Rivals, and the second book was Ruthless, Vows. And so for the first book I gave a 3 out of 5 stars, and the second one I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And I think there were things that I liked about this series and things that I didn't. I think my favorite part by far was the kind of letter aspect, and these 2 characters communicating via letters. I thought was really fun and really enjoyable to read. There was a lot of banter and so much personality that came about through these letters that I really enjoyed kind of reading it and going back and forth. I will say one of my things that was my biggest thing in this one is that I didn't find the romance to be super believable in this case. It felt very rushed, and I didn't although we had these letters brewing and kind of building that relationship, I just didn't, it felt very rushed to me, and the things that kind of happened in here just felt very rushed. Again, it could be just because it's war and just people do these kind of things very fast, but that was one of my things. But I really loved the 2 characters. I loved their banter and relationship, and their kind of romance that was sparked through this letter writing thing, which I really enjoyed. I thought the world concept was interesting, and both of these characters kind of reporting on this war and being at the front, I thought made it was really fun and as a different reading experience. But then again, I think my biggest gripe was this one was that it was I just didn't really believe the romance that much, and so that's why I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I feel this one had a good blend of, mild romance, not too spicy, mixed with a good kind of fantastical kind of action-packed scenes. So I did really enjoy this. And then after that, like I said, I picked up Divine Rivals, which I did enjoy a little bit more than its predecessor. And this one, I felt in this case, I felt I could feel that connection that these 2 characters had, the romance between these 2 characters. It felt more believable in this sense, but I just felt again, the villain in this, I didn't feel was very evil, if that makes sense. I didn't find him to be very scary or anything. I didn't feel he just felt one-dimensional in a way that I was not worried. Even though he was doing bad things, I didn't feel uncomfortable or worried for these characters in these situations, because he didn't really have much of a personality, and I feel he wasn't fully fleshed out to the point where I could really understand his motivations and why he was doing what he was doing, and that kind of fear that comes with these major kind of villain characters. And just I felt the resolution of this was just a little bit too rushed. It was very, very easy. I think I had looked at my notes in between them setting out to finish it, and when it finished it was 20 pages, so it was very, very quick. I never felt the stakes were super, super high. But then again, like I said, this one I give a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think this duology you know, is okay. Like, I think it's middle of the road. Like, I did enjoy some aspects of it, but it wasn't necessarily my favorite. I really loved the writing. It was very beautifully written. I feel like, again, I feel like it was the letters between the two characters that really is where it shines. So yeah, like I said, I like don't understand why this book has had so much hype, but like I said, there are aspects that I did love, some that I didn't. So if this is something that you think you would be interested in or not, like I said, I think it can go either way for someone. So like I said, it was just okay. Like I said, middle of the road, nothing too spectacular, but I did, you know, for the most part, it was like a decent, you know, good experience. And as I was saying, I'm feeling a little bit slumpy, and I think part of it is just the books that I read in May were, you know, fine, but nothing to really blow me away. And I feel like I want to fill my TBR coming into June with books that are going to excite me and get me back into reading. So I have like a couple methods to my madness in regards to picking books on my TBR and like why I was picking them. A lot of them are carryover from the last 2 months because, like I said, I've just been in kind of a weird reading rut recently. So they're kind of, some of them are repeats, so I won't really go too much into them because I've already talked about these. But the repeats that are a continuation from last month's TBR include Codename Hélène, The Familiar, and then also Spells for Forgetting. And again, I wanted to keep these 3 on here just because I feel like I do eventually get to it. I feel like I need to get back into a nice gripping historical fiction. I used to read World War II historical fiction like all the time, and I've heard great things about this one, so I'm hoping this one can kind of, again, spark that reading fire in me. I've heard really great things about The Familiar. My fiance read it and he said he really liked it, and I guess it kind of also has that fantastical element to it, which I think would be fun. And then also Spells for Forgetting, which again kind of I think is a smaller book, and I think it kind of has like a nice summary vibe to it. So these again are the ones that are carryover from last month's TBR. And then this was kind of the method to my madness when I was thinking about books to add to my TBR and what I was wanting to read this month, and this is what it came to mind when I was kind of doing this. But I also, like, one of the things I really love about reading, especially if all the books are out of the series, is marathoning that series in particular. And when I was looking at my shelf, there is one, I guess I have a couple, but these are the ones where I own all the books, and it's completed. So I read the first book, I want to say like 2 years ago. It was during COVID, or kind of to the tail end of COVID, and I have the next 2 books in this trilogy, and it is The Dragonheart Legacy by Nora Roberts, the second book being The Becoming, and the final book being The Choice. And I like, this was my method to my madness because I'm like, I like checking things off, I like completing series, and I like marathoning series. So this will be one that I was like, okay, this gives me kind of 2 books where I can get lost in a world for a while. And the premise of the story is we follow this girl who is a teacher, and she ends up quitting her job and doing what she was always wanted to do, which was to move to Ireland. And when she's there, she learns that her father, that she didn't really know, was actually a Fae king. And while there, she gets kind of intermingled with the world, and she kind of has to make a choice which world she wants to live in. But in that kind of Fae world, there is kind of political unrest that is kind of coming back full circle what her father tried to finish. And so she decides, does she want to kind of go back to her like normal human world, or does she want to kind of finish what her father started? And so luckily I have my notes on this, so I can just kind of reread my notes just to quickly get it refreshed with the world and the characters. But yeah, this was my method to my madness because like I said, I like the motivation of like finishing a series, checking it off my list, and marathoning. So I was like, and amongst all of these kind of 5 books, hopefully this kind of helps get me finally out of my kind of slumpy spring. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what books you read this month and what you plan on reading in June. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.